All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive deep into the playbook of author and educator Doug Lemov, who has some brilliant insights on how to coach beyond just the X's and O's to build a truly powerful team
Let's
identity.
kick things off with a bit of a puzzle. Get this, a Hall of Fame coach, a true legend, realized he was actually more successful when he had less time to prepare. Now, how does that make any sense? Well, it's because having less time forced him to do the single most important thing a leader can do. And there's the answer. He had to prioritize. That's really the core idea of what we're breaking down today. It's this concept that intentional, focused teaching is the real key to unlocking a team's potential. It's not about doing more. It's about doing what matters most. So here's our game plan. We're going to start with a classic coaching tool, the video room. And then we're going to zoom out to look at long-term growth, the language you use, the power of stories. And finally, the absolute bedrock of it all, making sure every single person on the team feels like they belong. Okay, let's jump in. First up, the video room. Let's be honest, most teams spend a ton of time in there, sometimes even more time than they spend on the actual field. But here's the big question. Are they really using that time in the best way possible? The data suggests maybe not. So a cognitive scientist actually went in and observed these coaching sessions. And what they found is pretty wild. About 75% of all the feedback given in the video room is corrective. It's focused on mistakes, on what went wrong. But what if we just flip that completely on its head? Lemov argues that the whole goal shouldn't be hunting for flaws. It should be about building a crystal clear mental model of what success looks like and feels like, so players can instantly, intuitively recognize when something's not right. So, the proposal here is a pretty radical shift. What if you made 75% of your video analysis about reinforcing what the team did right? It's about wiring their brains for success, not just constantly patching up failures. And this quote just illustrates the point perfectly. There's a coach Lemov works with who separates the process from the outcome. Think about that. By cutting the clip before the shot goes in, he's taking the luck, the noise out of the equation. He's focusing on the only thing that matters in the long run, making the right decision, every single time. Now, this idea of focusing on the process, not just the outcome, gets really, really interesting when you start to think about how it plays out over an entire season, or even a player's whole career. And this brings us to what might be one of the biggest challenges in all of coaching, having what Lemov calls a tested ego. This means being willing to make a decision that might not get you the win today, but will build a better player and a better team 5 years down the road when everyone is bigger, faster, and smarter. Now, if you're going to take that long view, you absolutely need allies. And your biggest allies or potential roadblocks are often the parents. So Lemov suggests being proactive. You've got to bring them in, explain the why behind what you're doing, and really turn them into partners in their kids' development. So you've got these big ideas about process and long-term vision, but how do you make them stick? How do you make them real for your team day in and day out? Well, you give them a name. Seriously, the vocabulary your team uses is a secret superpower. For this, Lemov points to an amazing example, Coach Jesse Marsh. This guy is basically obsessed with language because he knows it's one of the most powerful tools for building a unique, cohesive culture. He creates this private, shared language that makes the team's identity tangible. He gives names to specific actions, both on the field and off, and he'll even rebrand common terms just to make them their own. It creates this in-group feeling and reinforces who they are every single day. But look, just naming things isn't quite enough. That's just the first step. To make that language truly powerful, to make it unforgettable, you have to connect it to something way more fundamental to how our brains actually work. And that brings us to this incredible concept, the idea that stories are cognitively privileged. It sounds fancy, but the idea is super simple. Our brains are literally hardwired for narrative. I mean, we evolved sitting around campfires learning how to survive by telling stories. So our brains just naturally prioritize information when it's wrapped in a story. This is how Jesse Marsh does it. He doesn't just name a concept, he attaches it to a legend. When he says, "This is a Roger Bannister moment," he's not just talking about tactics. In that one phrase, he connects that play on the field to the iconic story of breaking the 4-minute mile, a story all about shattering what everyone thought was possible. Okay, so this brings us right to the foundation of everything. If your team's culture is really just a shared language and a collection of shared stories, How do you make absolutely certain that every single person feels like they're a character in that story? Because deep down, this is the silent question that so many people on a team are asking themselves. It's so powerful that there's a story of an NBA player who won a championship and actually wondered if he even deserved his ring, just because he felt like he didn't contribute enough.
So how do you fight that feeling? How you answer that silent question? Well, Lemov suggests a tool that might really surprise you, the cold call. Now I know what you're thinking, right? Cold calling feels aggressive, stressful, but when you reframe it, you see it's actually one of the most powerful signals of inclusion you can send. It says, I see you, I value your thoughts, you matter here. And the amazing thing is, this principle works everywhere. Lemov talks about using it at his own dinner table to draw his quiet daughter into the conversation. Teachers use it in classrooms in Ghana to empower young girls. And yes, coaches use it to engage the players at the end of the bench. It is a universal tool for creating belonging. So when you really think about it, the most important message you send isn't the big speech you give in the huddle. It's the small, constant signals. It's the quiet moment you turn to someone on the sideline and ask for their input, showing them that their voice is absolutely essential to the team's success.
All right, to wrap all this up, we want to leave you with a bit of a challenge. 3 questions for you to think about, drawn right from Lemov's work to help you start applying these ideas yourself.
So take a minute and think about your own world, your team, your office, your classroom, maybe even your family. How can you use these ideas to start shifting the focus? Moving from correcting flaws to building success, from chasing short-term wins to investing in long-term growth, and from letting people be passive observers to making sure everyone knows they belong.